I'm Tom Johnson, Thomas Johnson Antique Furniture Restoration in Gorham, Maine. And I want to say hello to everyone, my longtime subscribers, my loyal fans, and welcome to our new viewers. This is a desk I've been working on. It's taken me much longer than expected. There's just been a lot of problems and a lot of mysteries, but it's been a glorious summer here in Maine. I've been doing a lot of projects on the property, and I've been spending a lot of time on the patio by the pool. But I'm going to get this done. It's going to make a great video. I can't wait to share it with everyone. And in the meantime, I'm really enjoying these classics from our archives. Over the years, I've been privileged to work on a lot of period antiques. And a period antique is a piece that was made during the period for which it's named. In other words, with this Queen Anne looking glass, and after taking it apart, I feel certain it was made in the 18th century. And speaking of taking it apart, it needs all this repair work, but it can't look like you've done anything when you're finished. This is a really nice antique mirror frame, Queen Anne style. It's probably from before 1750. It's a period antique. It fell from the wall and sort of broke apart, but not bad. It broke at the joints. They must have been loose already. We have the moldings that came off. We have the back, which is the original back, and a nice piece of old glass. It's made of walnut, and it's actually, except for the obvious things that have happened to it, it's in really good shape. So I need to re-glue the frame and glue the moldings back on again. So one of the first things I need to do here is take this apart. This is coming apart. You can see these old nails here. I want to try to keep those nails. I also see evidence of what appears to be a spline. So I've got to work these other joints apart and figure out exactly what I've got here. The next step will be to remove the new nails that are here. I think there's just a few in these top joints. Now I'm going to scrape as much as I can. I'm going to scrape around the old nails, see what glue I can get off of there. Alright, I've scraped as much glue as I can. Did pretty good. Now I'm going to glue it back together. I've left the original nails in place, and I'm going to use those to guide these back together. I'm going to start the assembly. When I get them close, then I'll put the glue in there and I'll clamp it together. If you remember, there's these little splines here just in the bottom of the frame. I'm not going to attempt to replace those. They're really small. They did the spline, then veneered over the edge, so that would be a problem. I don't think they do much good. After the glue up, I'm going to add some support to the outside corners here. Okay, that was a tough glue up. Clamps get in the way of each other. I also had to make sure this is square. It's really square. It's good. All the joints are together, so I think I'm good. Okay, I've let this set up overnight. All right, this seems it seems nice and strong, and it's nice and flat, so it's great. I think the next thing I want to do, I'm going to glue some very thin braces on the exterior of these corners, just to give it a little strength, because the back, when I go to put the back on, that sits inside the frame. The back doesn't really help this frame, so I feel the need to put something across here. It'll just be some superficial thin pieces of wood in the corners. So I've got some 1/8 inch maple scrap I'll use to cut these little corner pieces. So the theory is that these little triangles will give some support to this frame, but they're just superficial. If anybody ever wanted to take them off in the future, they could. Before I start gluing on these moldings on the other side, I should have done this when I had it apart, but I want to remove, there's little blocks of wood that held in the glass and nails that held in the wooden back, and I'm going to remove those right now. Alright, now I can I have all these pieces which came off, got to figure out where they go, and then I can scrape the old glue off and glue them down. Now you may have noticed on the molding on the frame that there's a lot of sections with spaces between the sections like these. And that's because the grain of the molding runs perpendicular to the grain of the frame. The molding has shrunk up, leaving all these spaces. So as I glue these pieces back, you'll notice that I'm going to leave spaces on either side, just like it was, before these came off. So everything looks good. Now I'm going to take a damp rag and just go over the frame, looking for any hide glue that needs to be cleaned off. Okay, before I go any further on the frame, I'm going to turn it over and install the glass and the back. As I turn this over, I realized there are some support pieces glued to the back of this upper section that were missing when it came in. But I need to find some thin strips of wood and strips of wood that can bend a little bit with this cupped top section and glue those on. I realized too when I turned this over that I had this little piece of wood taped to the back, and it came from this corner right here. When the wood, this edge is veneered, and when the frame itself shrunk some, it pushed this area out, and that came off. But I think I can get it right back there where it came from. found some nice pieces of 1/8" pine in the scrap wood box, and I've cut them to fit in these 3 spaces. So I'll just scrape the old glue and glue them down. So I've still got to put some stain on my new pieces, but first I've talked it over with the owner of the mirror, and all these cracks between these sections of molding, I'm going to fill those with a little wax. It's called low heat burn and stick. It's just a hard wax that you melt into these cracks. Alright, the cracks look good. The wax I used is a pretty good neutral color. As I hold this up and kind of look at it, though, I see some places where the wax looks a little light, so I'll use a fine grain marker like this one to touch them up a bit, just in some areas. I don't really know if this is the original piece of glass or not. It's certainly very old. Silvering looks very old. But I think the original glass might have been a lot thinner than this piece. This is kind of a heavy piece of glass, but I don't know that much about it. So there we have it. This is a really nice 18th century Queen Anne looking glass, and of course it fell off the wall because the old wire in the back broke. So I re-glued the frame and re-glued a lot of these pieces of molding around the perimeter of the glass. I think it looks pretty good. This desk is a period piece. I'm sure it was made in the 18th century. And once again, the repair works needs a little gluing, but then there's a piece missing. And again, it can't look like you've done anything to it. This is a really nice antique Chippendale serpentine fall front desk. It's 18th century, probably 1760 to 1790. It's made of mahogany. I'm sure it's from the Caribbean. It could be Cuban mahogany. One notable thing about this desk, it is very, very heavy. The wood is extremely dense and extremely heavy. Overall, it's not in bad shape, but it's got a couple of problems. On the left rear foot, it's missing a block of wood altogether. I'll have to reproduce that. It's a block that goes behind the foot. And then on the sides, you'll see that this front board is getting pushed forward. There's cracks on both sides. The interior pieces of the drawer are pushing this out. You can see here the wide board that makes up the rail and the drawer runner behind. All those things have to be able to push back along with this front board. I may need to either move or cut this drawer runner to allow these pieces to move back where they belong. The first thing I'm going to do is remove the lid so it won't be in the way, and also to keep it safe. I'm going to put a clamp on this to see if this wants to move. I suspect it won't want to move because these interior pieces are being held in place. It actually has come together. Well, I'm going to put more clamps on it, maybe even get a longer piece here, and see if the whole thing comes to where I want it to be. Okay, I've clamped this up dry, and it seems like it's going to go right back together. So I'll remove these clamps and clean out that crack as best I can and glue it up. Okay, I'll let this dry overnight, and tomorrow do the other side. Okay, so we've put the desk on its back, and now you can really see where this piece is missing over here. I got a big old chunk of mahogany here. Still got a little bit of the bark on it. It's very dense and very heavy, which reminds me of the mahogany that's in that desk, so I think it ought to work pretty well. Measure my length here. I'm going to use the shadow of the original piece. It's actually more like 4 3/4.
Okay, this looks good. I think my next step will be to cut the scallops. I've determined that these blocks are identical, so I'm going to take my tracing from this block. Before I put my tracing on my block of wood to cut it, I really need to cut some of this curve first, or my tracing won't fit on my piece of wood accurately. So I'm going to scrape all this old glue off, position my block, and trace out that curve. Okay, so that curve looks good. I love the negative features. Cool. This curve has to come around and meet right under the desk. And I think I should try to get closer before I attach this piece. I don't want to damage the case trying to get close in there. All this time I've been fitting this leg has been a little bit loose and I've been holding it into position. I think that the next step before I go any further is to glue this leg. So this leg, although it's a little loose, I can see it's got a full tenon. I can see the other end of the tenon in the bottom of the case, but it must be pinned or nailed, and it's definitely not worth it to start disassembling this case to get it loose. What I'm going to do is work as much glue as I can into here and clamp it into position, and that way it'll be where I need it to be while I glue this piece on, and this piece and the block I'm going to add behind it will give this leg plenty of support. Okay, that's great. Now, tomorrow, after the glue dries, I'll sand this, shape it a little bit more, and be ready to stain it. Alright, now I've got to make a big glue block to fit here behind my new piece and the leg, and I'll do it similar to the original glue block that I see over here. Okay, I milled up a piece of pine here, and now I'm tracing the outline. I'll also cut this at an angle afterwards to resemble the other one. Okay, that looks good. I'll glue this on and then I'll sand that a little bit after I'm done. I'm going to keep moving this back and forth until it grabs, which it is doing. Good. We've put the desk up on a bench, and now I'm going to plane my new piece and then sand it. I've also can see I've got to shape this curve a little bit. I got to file away or rasp away some wood here to match this curve. Okay, I've sanded it up to 150. Now I'll stain it with some Perfect Brown dye stain. Okay, so the stain is dried. Now I'll tape off around that new piece and seal it with shellac. So here you have it. This is a really nice antique Chippendale desk. What I did was, if you remember, I re-glued these side strips which were getting pushed out of the interior as the side shrunk. And I also, there was a piece missing, a block for this leg. I re-glued the leg and made this new block for the leg. And then I just went over the whole piece with the some steel wool and the beeswax polish. Yeah, it looks pretty good.
But I don't work exclusively on period antiques. I will work on anything that has sentimental value to the owner. And in fact, no matter what it is, all the pieces in here are here because of sentimental value. But I love this toy box. It's really just a box, but they used it as a toy box. Grandfather made it. And this might be the only video where you see me painting something. This is a nice old box. It's just that, just a box. The owner's grandfather built it, and probably as a utility box of some sort, but as a child it was used as a toy box, and so we're going to call it a toy box. And the main thing that's happened here is that the hinges broke off, the back board broke off where the hinges attach. So that's what's got to be repaired. And it looks like it's been maybe kept in a basement for a while, and so it really needs to be cleaned inside and out. It's got what looks like might be some mold issues on this side. I'll be mixing up paint to do the touch-ups in the back after I've repaired it, and I'm a little unsure what we're going to do about the paint. I'll do the repairs, mix up paint to touch that up, and see if we do anything else to the front of it. But it basically needs to be cleaned inside and out. So I got some paint from the hardware store. It's not the exact right color. I'm going to have to adjust it. But in the meantime, this evening, I'm going to put some paint on the, just a first coat to get this sealed. I'll have to fool around with the paint more tomorrow. All right, the paint has dried overnight. I'm going to sand it and let's see if we can get a better color. So this is acrylic interior house paint, and I have acrylic colors, and I'm going to see if I can bring it closer to what we see on the back here. I'll try some black. That seems the most obvious choice. Getting there. More black, and I think I'll put raw umber in also. I think I better transfer to a larger container here. I'm going to put some paint back into the smaller container, just a little bit, and I'm going to mix my umber in that. Well, I think I'm really good. I won't really know till I paint some on and let it dry. I'll let that dry. All right, this is dried. I think it looks good. Color's good. Kind of wondering if it's not a little bit too dark, but it's darker down here. This is the worst side. I'm going to paint this and see what it looks like. I'm just going to give it a quick sand. I'm not trying to get rid of defects. In fact, I want to leave all the defects in the paint. I'm just sort of knocking off the loose stuff. I'm even going to wipe this off with a damp cloth, and then I'll paint it. Now see, I could kind of wipe the paint off some too, if I wanted that look.
I actually kind of like that. Well, I'm really liking this, the way it looks, how all the defects look. It comes across as not being as dark as the back, but I can always just darken up this edge a little bit, transition a little bit better. But the thing I like this. I don't know if the customer's going to like it or not, but I can always put more paint on. In fact, eventually, if I wanted less, I could scrub off less too, but I'm kind of liking this a lot. Of course, I got to go over the back to get all these raw wood painted too, but the back and the other side definitely have more paint on them. But I'm going to do it like this. I can always paint it again if we decide to. I like this though. Okay, I need to just clean the sawdust out of the interior. I need to stain my new wood back here and attach the lid.
This is why we save old screws. Now I want to add a chain to this lid to keep it from falling all the way back, which is probably why it broke. And I saw some indication that there used to be something on here. That should do it. So here we have it, this nice antique box. I say antique, we don't really know how old it is. The owner's grandfather made it. The kids used it as a toy box, hence the sentimental value of Grandpa's toy box. And it came out of the basement. We got it cleaned up. I ragged this paint on. We're not sure if that's the final finish or not. We have to figure a way for the owner to come in here, and we're going to discuss this and see exactly what we want it to be. But it looks great now. It's nice and clean. Added the chain. I think it looks pretty good.